What is separate, we can't separate us out is shitty. And I can't do without you, darling. Yes, I wish you baby. You know I love you, that. It's all apart. Yeah, now we go. Things fall apart. All I want you to know, woman, you love it's like changing. And I wouldn't be the same without you, darling. Your love is like baby. You always catch me when I fall. When I'm away, it's like my phone's always, but you're not here to hear me. If I lost my way, I know I'd be okay, but you'd be there to hear me. I know when I can see things clearly. You genuinely because you love sincerely. You never let me down, not even nearly, not even nearly. I'm the love and don't see the test. Sometimes I don't see the fact. Some friends and they don't intend to share. Some sell and they pretend to get. But nobody ever.
Pleasant good evening, everyone. We want to welcome you to the National Youth Forum of the Young Democrats. My name is Janine Butcher, and I am the president of the Young Democrats. We apologize for the late start, but we thank you for being here with us this evening. And we now ask you to stand for the playing of the national anthem.
Shall we sing it?
Yeah.
Shall we sing it?
Yeah.
Let's sing it. National.
20 and in time of need, when they was young, the break of mountain souls, from which our pride is grown. We cry, it's no one to us, no one, it's his soul, and our lost to us, the rock of nation born. We are the sons to be born. We are our neighbor. We face nations free. Guardians of our heritage,
from craftsmen of the sea.
For fancy of the on the people side, we have no doubts of free. Now we shall be strong, so be free. Our nation will be strength when you make it.
We loyal sons and daughters to live by making law. These fields and hills beyond recall are now our very home. We write our names on history's page, great expectations great. Great guardians of our heritage, firm craftsmen of our faith.
Please remain standing for the prayer by Shamari Jones.
Thank you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this youth forum. We thank you for the safety of all who will attend, and we ask for blessings on this event. Lord, we thank you for the speakers and their messages. We pray, God, that their words will be filled with wisdom. Lord, we also pray, God, that their words will be filled with encouragement and inspiration. Lord, we lift up our leadership to you. We pray for wisdom, integrity, guidance as they lead. Lord, we ask that your will be done in all that transpires at this forum this afternoon. May the message of hope, empowerment, and unity go forth with power, touching lives and transforming hearts. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. You may take your seat. I want to welcome you to the National Youth Forum of the Young Democrats. This evening, as we take our final session for our weekend of activities, we now go into a panel discussion where the crowd can engage. This evening's panel discussion will start off with the former Minister of Sport, Youth and Culture, Mr. Stephen Lashley. He'll be speaking on the National Youth Policy, which the Democrats with Labour Party under his leadership at the time actually created. We then also go into the PSV culture and transportation as well. And here this evening we have the moderator, who will be Stefan Watson. He's our chairman of meetings. We also have Valentine Gate. She's from Kenya, and with the 6.25 movement, as I would have stated, in the middle will be Mr. Stephen Lashley, former Minister of Sports, Youth and Culture, and a lawyer. We also have Senator Shalika Vidal. She's from Dominica. And at the end will be Ezekiel John. He's a youth activist. So welcome, and we encourage you to engage with us and participate as much as you can this evening.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, let me say really hearty congratulations to the Young Democrats for a very successful weekend of activities. I believe that the efforts of the Young Democrats to bring the nation's attention to a number of critical issues must be celebrated and saluted, especially at a time when Barbados is going through so many challenges, especially among our youth. So I want to first of all thank them for bringing this forum together. I believe all the activities so far for the weekend were very well subscribed, but it takes a very bold set of young people to dare to approach the issues in the way that the young Dems have. And it tells me that we still have a cadre of young leaders in Barbados who are focused and who are very keen on taking the transformation of our society to a new level. In relation to the national youth policy, which I will speak to very, very briefly before we get into the panel discussion. When I was Minister of Culture, Sports and Youth, well, Family, Culture, Sports and Youth, when I entered the cabinet, I had a mandate to place a national youth policy that would be relevant to the time and seek to transform the thinking of our young people and to send a very strong message to Barbados about the role of the youth within the wider developmental context. And we embarked on that policy by going to the young people themselves. And we were able to have a number of very intense public and focus group consultations with the young people. And we were able to take to the Parliament a national youth policy that was actually created, crafted by the young people of Barbados. What we did was to provide a number of consultants to the young people to help them to formulate their strategies. And that national youth policy was debated in Parliament, and then it was actually put into effect. And I'm proud to say that for the 5 years that national youth policy was in place, we have achieved so many of the objectives of that national youth policy. One of the things that we certainly would have looked at was the whole question of youth unemployment and the quest of young people to own their own businesses. Many of you will be familiar with the Youth Entrepreneurial Scheme, which is still within the government. It is a very well-used organ of young people. And between that period of 2010 to 2018, I will refer to one of the statistics which not only I am proud of, but which speaks to the very high success rate of the national youth policy. And it had to do with the creation of youth-led businesses in Barbados through the Youth Entrepreneurial Scheme, otherwise known as YES. And there is one statistic which I want to speak to because it tells me that we have in Barbados a number of young people who are keen on growing their own businesses and who are focused on development of Barbados. And even as we look at the issues of crime and the issues of antisocial behavior, we should not lose sight of a cadre of young, very excited and young men and women who are focused on the development of Barbados through owning their own businesses. We did have issues related to youth deviance at the time, but out of that, for that 5-year period, we saw an exponential growth in youth-led businesses, supported by the YES program. And the stats tell us a story that there's much more that we can achieve in terms of growing youth businesses. We had about 24 businesses on the YES accounting system during that 5-year period. And that contributed to the development of Barbados in terms of the GDP. A mammoth $16 million, precisely $16.3 million in business created by those 24 businesses. And the YES program provided access to adequate early stage traditional and non-traditional sources of financing for 40 clients in the amount of $125 million, just over that. And if you work the math, it tells you that there was a significant injection of business activity just for that 5-year period by young people. And there is more to that because in all of that, we had young people involved in the arts, in creativity. We had young people who were involved in agriculture. And many of the programs that we created was as a result of that national youth policy. We had, for example, a focus on the national youth development program. We had the national youth service. In fact, we revamped a number of the programs in the national youth service. And if you remember at that time that we took the youth policy to Parliament, there was a huge debate as to whether the national youth service should be made mandatory for young people in terms of ensuring that our young people had to go through a mandatory national youth service. That became very political at the time because I recall in Parliament, we were accused of acting in breach of the fundamental rights of young people by even talking about a mandatory youth service, national youth service. All we were saying is that we felt that to direct the path of our young people, we needed to ensure that each young person of a particular age should be enrolled in a national program, whether it be Scouts, Cadets, whether it be a religious youth program, whatever, because we felt that it was necessary to help them to grow in a way that was not deviant. Now, if you listen carefully, I was very sure that I heard that this discussion about whether or not we should have a mandatory national youth policy, youth program is now back on the cards. And I would say this to you, we worked very hard to create a national youth policy because we felt that any government that was serious about young people should have a written national youth policy. If you have an economic policy, if you have a social policy, a health policy, and you're serious about young people and their development, you must have a written national policy offering guidance to young people. The policy that was crafted was multi-sectorial. We had an implementation strategy, and this policy transcended and crisscrossed many ministries. We had an implementation committee, which had membership from all across the government sector and also the non-governmental sector. And that was critical to ensure that if we're talking about creating opportunities for young people in agriculture, that the Ministry of Agriculture was involved. If we're talking about protecting our young people from, sexually transmitted diseases, that the Ministry of Health was involved. So all the ministries were involved in a dynamic way to ensure that our young people could not only believe, but know that these policies were going to be implemented. So I'm very proud of that. What I can say to you, though, is that while in very quick form, we were able to put in place a national youth policy. Today, I believe 11 years, it's 11 years at the 7 years that the Barbados Labour Party has been in office. That policy that we crafted and that we took to Parliament is still the guiding policy today. There has been no new written national youth policy put in place by this government. I'm aware and I'm told that one is in draft, but you can't be serious about youth development if you spend 7 years having a national youth policy only in draft. You can't be serious. And I believe that, young people sometimes lose faith in policymakers because some policymakers talk a lot, but do hardly little to translate the talk about youth development into action. We have a lot of issues relating to crime and violence involving our young people. We would have put in place a number of very focused programs to tackle youth crime. We had a program called City Unity, which addressed the issue of crime in the city. We also had a block drafts program where we had the king of drafts, Suki King, going on the blocks and teaching the guys and girls on the blocks drafts. And what came out of that program was you had so-called gang leaders putting down the guns and sitting down in organized competitions and having fun with other young people across Barbados. So the amount of criminal activity on the block reduced significantly because of a program such as that. So, as to the way these programs have gone, they have actually been dismantled by the current administration in its quest to come up with something new that does not work. We also had a program which I was very proud of. It was called a First Responders Program, because we felt and we knew that in every community most of the time there are blocks. But when you have a fire in a community, who are the first persons who respond to that fire? They tend to be the guys on the block, because they're out there, they are aware and seeing what is going on. And oftentimes you see in the media stories of very touching stories of elderly citizens being rescued from their home. The action of the same people on the block who people believe they're not all negative. So what we did, working along with the emergency services and so on, we decided to create a program involving the block persons. So we trained them in the art of responding to emergencies. And all across Barbados, we had a partnership with the males and females on the block to teach them how to respond properly to emergencies. Today, I can tell you, I've heard nothing more about that program. So we've had a lot of neglect in relation to youth development, a lot of talk. And we've had what I call silent contradictions in our society. Because one of the problems our young people face is that they're witnessing the contradictions of our society, where persons are telling them one thing and then doing something. So the morning words and actions of policymakers in particular are not squaring with the evening and afternoon words and actions. So our young people can't sometimes identify who these people are anymore. Because some people come to you as one person this time, and then they change their colors and skin for their own personal choices and so on. So we have contradictions in our system, and our young people are facing that. And I want to say also that our national youth policy was also very much influenced by the faith-based organizations. And you hardly hear nowadays about faith-based organizations. Our churches no more have a role in helping the government to form strategies and programs for our young people. So we are tabooing faith. And I was very surprised and to some extent disappointed to read recently in the newspaper where I believe it's the faith-based organizations had a press conference in which they lamented the fact, not only were they disappointed in the fact that the government's strategies for fighting crime and violence in our society has failed. The church was saying that the government's policies have failed. But more importantly, what came out of that message was that the churches were saying that they were knocking on the doors of the government repeatedly, asking for an opportunity to assist the government with some of these challenges that they were having, and they were not meeting with any success. They were saying they were literally locked out. I heard one pastor saying that they were relegated to something called the third sector that nobody knows about. I don't know if anybody here knows anything about the third sector and what it means for Barbados. But the engagement that traditionally was part and parcel of where government worked hand in hand with faith-based organizations such as the church to help to show our young people a better pathway has disappeared, has literally dried up. So when you read the statistics where, the amount of homicides being carried out in Barbados are being now led by that 18 to 36 age group. And that persons who are being gunned down, the persons who tend to be holding that gun is a young person in that age. It means that we have literally lost our pathway. And the social fabric of our nation has been hugely compromised with little or no answers from this present government. And I believe that if you look within that national youth policy, which happened to have been the first national youth policy, we created a number of systems, a number of structures In fact, one of the things that our young people talked about was creating some safe spaces for young people to develop and to hone their skills. And we created the first youth empowerment center. We were going to create some more. But if you go into Silver Hill, you will see the first youth empowerment center that has been created in Barbados with the donation, the dollars that came from the Maria Holder Trust. And I'm proud of that structure, but it's meant to be an empowerment hugely underutilized, because we have now become a society that is now telling our young people that engaging in wholesome discussions and developmental programs is not something that you should be your first priority. So what are they being told is that, you know, we only want you for some fence and some food and so on. Beyond that, there's hardly any role for a lot of our young people. I'm not saying that there aren't young people who are meaningfully engaged, because I meet them every day. We have a number of young people, some of them are right here, the Young Democrats, who are focused, but we are losing far too many young people because we are failing them. Policymakers are failing them, and we lack created a national youth policy. It seems not to be the priority of this government to head with either implementing what is in there, because many of these issues that young people face, the solutions are in that national youth policy. So you waste a lot of time, 7 years, saying that you are having a draft policy, but that policy remains only in draft. And I think that that's an indictment on this present government. And it really ought to be a very shameful exercise, because you can't be telling me that the only role you have for young people is to tell them, close the election time, come and vote for me. Come and put up my posters. Come and be a part of a party in which I'm only going to serve alcohol and other things that are undesirable for our young people. So I'm happy to address this forum, because I'm hopeful that with the help of the Young Democrats and other organizations who mean well in Barbados, that young people can begin to craft again those important policies that are required to ensure that our young people can move forward. I heard a lot of discussion about youth unemployment. We continue to talk about it, the amount of youth unemployment that there is. Young people have complained about access to housing. In that national youth policy, we would have put in place policies to help our young people to access housing. And if you ask me where those policies, what is happening now, it is very difficult to gauge what is happening now. So I would end my presentation, at least my first salvo at this, by saying that I'm proud that we were able to put in place a national youth policy. I believe that modern governance demands that youth policies are reviewed and updated. So it is unacceptable not to have a written national youth policy approved by the highest organ of our society, which is Parliament, and implemented with implementation goals, and also reviewed frequently, so that we can begin now to rescue our young people and offer them hope in terms of entrepreneurship. As I said, certainly the youth entrepreneurship program is there. I don't know what is the how they're operating, what is the success rate. I hope that they're doing so well. But we need to now re-inject into our society some serious thought in terms of ensuring that our young people are supported by good policy, and that they believe once again that government is there batting for them. So I'll end there and allow the discussion to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lashley, for your contribution on the youth policy. Great. Good afternoon again, everyone. So the purpose of this discussion this afternoon is to is for the panel to seek an open and national conversation on how Barbados' van culture within the island's unique public transportation system has shaped the behavior, mindset, and values of the youth, while recognizing the economic and social role of the PSV as a public service vehicle sector. The discussion will explore how music, style, and attitudes on these vehicles influence youth identity, discipline, and public behavior. We aim to bridge the gap between the PSV operators, parents, and youth and young people to discuss, among other things, what van culture means to Barbadian youth today, how we can balance creative expression with public safety and respect, what changes are needed to make transportation safe, uplifting, and youth positive. So for the first question I'm going to bring to the panel, I'm going to ask this one of youth advocate Siko John. First question: what does van culture represent to you, to young people in Barbados today?
Good evening, everyone. When we look at van culture in Barbados, we have to look at what made it so attractive for young people to even decide to let's take a van and just even jolly ride. And we know for sure it's not that it is for its modern comforts or, but it's for the culture that comes with it. Having the entertainment, the speakers booming, drivers driving aggressively, having the little shakes, the excitement that comes with it, the adrenaline. And if you keep it real, it would attract any child who sees that as a thrill-seeking adventure. So when we look at the van culture, this is something that didn't just start yesterday. This was passed down through generation. I think any and everyone sitting here know for sure that in their days there were, the milkshakes and the long ones, and So this is not something that started today. And it was just passed down as just a cultural thing where it was concerned. And I say it with a heavy heart because we understand that it comes at a detriment, not only just to the safety of our young people, but also even the understanding of adults who we put in charge, or we give them the license to actually transport the stone for safely, to actually take on these acts and tasks and disregard for human life. I think that is very, very sad, and it's heartbreaking in a sense that we have not found a way to bring it to an end and to halt it and say, well, enough is enough. And so where this divine culture is concerned, I think it was something that was passed on. It's not something that started yesterday. Obviously with these speakers, women playing your favorite songs, listening to what is you want to hear, the entertainment bringing you, because for them it also means where they can attract individuals so they can make money, so they can monetize off of the crowd. So they want to be more appealing than the next vehicle. They want to be more appealing than the next transport board bus. So for them, they're going to do whatever it takes so they can attract the younger demographic.
Mr. John. I have one more question on the topic. Would you say you said that it's very attractive to the youth. It's something that would have been passed on from the older generation. Would you say that the PSV culture then is a cultural classroom for the youth?
Yeah, definitely. And I like how you put it in terms of the cultural classroom, because most of the stuff that we've learned, especially if you're not exposed to it in your community or in your homes, your mother wouldn't allow you to listen to certain music or to hear certain things. The minivan became that place where you picked a lot of, you picked up a lot of scenes, you picked up a lot of music, you picked up a lot of trends. So yes, in terms of a cultural class, yeah, that's the reason why we went and we jolly ride and we went back and forth and up and down and to and forth. That's where you come, you would meet your friends, you would meet people, and it was just a party. It was a party on wheels. So in terms of a cultural classroom, that's exactly what it was. It was a party on wheels. And there's no way that a child is going to look and say, well, why not have a bus crawl on our way to school? So definitely it was that.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Lashley, I heard you mention in your youth policy, in your summary of the youth policy, that you did a lot of consultation with experts on different issues that would impact the youth. Would you have found that music, the atmosphere, and the behavior of the PSVs shape the culture of the youth?
Well, I think a lot of things shape the culture of the youth. I think it is not only that culture, it's a multiplicity of issues. Within the context of the consultation for the National Youth Policy, young people, of course, echoed their concerns about a number of things. You'd be very surprised. Some of the young people themselves recognized that there were certain values, certain antisocial behaviors that they themselves frowned on. And there were young people who also frowned on the negativity in relation to how certain PSVs operated. So we shouldn't necessarily bunch this whole issue of fan culture in one direction. You'd be surprised to hear that there are young people who frown on some of the music that you find in vans. You find that vans do also transform how they look. You look at the PSV van, you wonder if you're in a discotheque because it's transformed some of all the language and the color of the doors and windows and so on. But that's the reality of what it is. Now, most school children, and you remember when you were of that age, would probably want to do their own thing. And I believe that what has happened with the van culture is persons have been allowed to do their own thing without any proper regulation and enforcement of the law. So tell me something, if PSVs were required to have their vehicles inspected on a regular basis, as I know the law is, then why would they be able to get away with having a lot of certainly language and certain things in the van that should not be in there? So it tells me that either they go and get registered, they get inspected, and whoever is inspecting them don't enforce the law, or they're able to evade the inspection requirements. So my take on that is that yes, while it has shaped it, I think PSVs have been allowed to literally get away with, many of them get away with things that they should not be able to get away with, and we need to tighten the regulatory environment under which PSVs operate. The state has got to step in and protect children from those environments and pull those PSVs off the road that are encouraging and actually condoning this kind of behavior. So that's really what it is. I think eventually, unless that is done, the culture will become it will go past that point where it becomes a threat to the existence of young people who actually ride those buses.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Lashley. Before we move on to the other panelists, I'd like to open the floor for some questions from the audience.
This is not really a question but a comment. I am not sure I can agree with you that this culture and we ourselves from generation in your lifetime. For those of us who are a little older, I certainly didn't go up with this ZR culture. But I don't even remember when we had ZR vans. But what we want to ask, especially Mr. Lashley, I remember when the Democratic Party came in 1986. There was a policy introduced free bus travel for school children. What impact, if any, did that have on this culture?
Well, thanks for that question. And in fact, that was true. When we came into office, we recognized that finding a way to really protect our young people from the ZR culture was the prime responsibility of the government. And that spurred a policy direction to have our school children ride free on public transport. In fact, the schools were targeted with transport board buses to ensure that they don't have the excuse to say, well, we don't have a bus taking us to school, we have to ride the ZR. So the intention was to basically ensure that our young school children did not have to ride on a ZR. And it worked very well. Of course, the transport board has to have enough buses for that to work effectively. And in recent times, I'm hearing that that is an issue. And that is why you find that our school children, who I believe still ride free on transport buses, but I heard a principal recently saying that there are some of, certainly from her charges, who literally stay in the bus terminal and wait for ZR buses. In other words, they intentionally wait for ZRs and have a ball. And tackling that issue is really must be the priority right now. You can't have our school children determining what transport they would think. It couldn't happen certainly in your day or my day, because you had inspectors and persons in the terminals ensuring that school children get out of the terminal within a certain time. So that is a problem, but it is a problem that has to be managed very, very quickly, because we had an unfortunate situation the other day where I believe a van taking students to the Leicester School, I believe, literally was involved in a party apparently, and overturned, and it was only through the good graces of God that people were not killed. So we can't wait for our young people to be killed to stop this foolishness, because that's what it is. I think the country and the government has to adopt a zero tolerance approach to those that are who are going to flout the law. And we need to protect our children. Our role is to protect our young people, because they are vulnerable. Many of them are impressionable. Many of them would, as you and I did, would go a particular route if you can, if there's no sanction. So our focus must be to ensure that the law is enforced, and we literally have to take those ZRs off the road that are breaking the law. It's as simple as that. I don't know that you need a long policy or whatever to deal with those intransigent ZR drivers and so on. We just have to ensure that we enforce the law, and that is the problem. The law is not being enforced, and therefore people who should not be driving and in charge of those ZRs are literally taking our children to their death. So my position on that is that when we did that, we adopted that approach. That has not been continued in a meaningful way, and now we have this situation which needs to be dealt with up front.
Okay. Hello, another question from the audience.
I want to go on from the question, Mr. Ashley. I understand that parents are the ones who encourage their children to drive on these ZRs, and they have various reasons why they do that. It is believed, maybe by them and others, that ZR conductors and drivers will wait and arrange with those persons when they're at work or wherever. And therefore, what do we do with parents? How do we, if one should say, educate the parents or manage that situation where parents feel that they're more in control of the ZR situation than they are with the transport board? Because I understand that that is why parents, although they didn't have to pay for the transport board for the school children, that they preferred to let them come by the ZR or the minibus, whichever one it is.
Well, and I've heard that too as well, and it is a very complex issue, because we do have an issue in terms of our parents. Not all of them, I must say. The caveat must be that it is not all parents who are allowing children to do their own thing, but we do have parents who have challenges in relation to how they manage their wards and so on. But we have to find ways in which we have intervention both at the school level, because if principals are monitoring the times that the children are arriving at school, I'm sure that principals will know reasons why their pupils, their students are coming to school late, and with the right type of questioning, they will discover why they are coming to school late. And when I was at school, certainly there would be a quick intervention. where the principal can summon that parent to the school, and there can be accountability for the actions of our children. I don't know the imposition of sanction on parents who are of allowing their children to flout rules, because I know that certainly schools have rules and regulations to be followed in relation to being at school on time. I don't know if we have gone to the stage of regulating what transport or mode of transport they take. That would have to be at the level of the state. I'm not aware that the government has put in place any regulation that says that a child cannot take a ZR to school. I think even when we were in government, we sought to curb that by creating an avenue of having free travel on the transformer buses, with the intent that that would actually, because I think you have to pay on the ZR to get to school. But even paying does not seem to be an obstacle to traveling. So we probably need now to revisit the rules and regulations in relation to that, and to protect our school children. Parental intervention with parents is a very multifaceted issue. We've talked about putting in social workers and psychologists to help parents who are having issues in managing their children get the kind of counseling and intervention that they require. Social issue where parenting, and mind you, that's one of the issues that came up in relation to the National Youth Policy, where we actually had in there a program to have at least a parenting program in every constituency as a matter of policy. And we did that to some extent. Parents are, many of them are crying out for help. If you talk to those teachers at the particularly primary school level, they will tell you of the disconnect between what is supposed to be happening in terms of the parents' role in ensuring that their children and their education is a partnership with the school. Some of that has actually broken down. And the intervention of the social worker is going to be critical in helping to curb that and many other myriad issues that our school children are facing.
We have another question from the audience.
Good afternoon. My name is Anaya. I have a question. What if that was the only bus that can school the children?
And she looks at me because she's challenging me to ask that question. That's a very good question. If that's the only bus, then we have a problem, because if that is the case, as I understand it is in some cases now, you have a failure of the wider public transportation system. Because if the government is not placing at the disposal of those children buses to take them to school, and their only method of transport is a ZR that will be very unwidely in terms of how they operate, then we have a challenge, because that child will most likely take that ZR bus or that ZR transport. So we're now raising a bigger issue as to whether or not the government has placed at the disposal of our schools enough buses. And I did hear, my understanding is that no, you don't have enough buses, because each time I hear the minister responsible for transport speaking, she speaks of that there's a need and that the government will be bringing more buses for the schools and so on. So my understanding is that the schools and the transport board does not have enough buses to provide to our schools. So the question that was asked by my young friend is a very relevant question. We are trying to curb this antisocial behavior in terms of the ZRs, but the school children don't have enough buses. And many of them are forced to take these ZRs and expose themselves to this kind of behavior. So I believe the big question should be to the government: when are we going to have enough transport buses available to our schools to enforce a policy that says, look, school children shall be taken to and from school only by a transport board bus, because that is where we need to get to. Until the ZR people can get their act together, the government need to put in place enough buses and put as a rule, nothing wrong with that at all, put as a standard rule
that says that our school children who use public transport as of X day, we have provided enough buses and you shall go back and forth to school only by means of a public transport bus. I'm aware that the ZR, the association and those who manage the ZRs will tell you, look, we are keen on getting the bad apples of the system. And we know that. It's not every ZR operator who runs afoul of the law. And one of the things I certainly would call for, because I think the young people themselves have an opportunity to meet with the ZR associations and invite them to sign a public their words in paper about dealing with some of the issues that we are concerned about. And I certainly would challenge the Young Democrats to do that, initiate that dialogue, because I believe when I listen to the leadership of the ZR Association that they mean well. They mean well. But they are having challenges in dealing with some of the bad apples in their association. And we have, you would not believe it, that in our transport regulations, we do have a system of demerit points in which if you are acting in breach of the law and you incur a certain amount of penalties, that you will have your permit withdrawn. You will never be able to drive that public transportation again. And but when I look at the stats, I am not able to find one incident in which a ZRV driver who has been breaching the law continuously has had that permit withdrawn and can't drive that ZR ever. We need to enforce the law, but more importantly, we need to get real. And the government needs to put at the disposal of the schools designated buses. And once those buses are available, then there's no excuse to move away from having a policy that says our school children, we have issues with the ZRs, and therefore they must travel back and forth by buses provided by the transport board.
Thank you, Mr. Lashley. Take another question from the audience.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amoy Kimbengor, and
Go forward. Yeah.
I am the candidate for Christchurch East under the Democratic Labour Party. In my research, I revealed that in 2019, the then Director of the Transport Authority, I think his name was Mr. Ian, he had proposed to put GPS systems on the PSVs so that we can track where they're going, because a lot of them like to go off-road and do a lot of other things. And then we can also see where they are, where they're supposed to be or where they're not supposed to be. As you indicated, with the demerit system in place, infractions will incur a demerit, and then your license will be revoked. The government, well, did not, it fell on deaf ears, needless to say, because we don't have it in place. But is that something that we can use as a solution, maybe, other than a blanket, blatant prohibition on using PSVs? Because let's face it, there are some areas that don't have transport board buses. I mean, I understand that you're saying that when we get to the stage where we have enough buses, but I don't know when we're gonna get there. The people in Fair Valley have been complaining about lack of public reliable transportation for years. They have one transport board up there to service all of them and all of those school children. So when they catch the bus in the morning, they don't have a bus to bring them back in the evening. They are forced to get on the PSVs. So it's their circumstance has forced them to deal with lesser evils, or if you want to put it that way. So you think is that something that maybe could be done in the future?
I think so. I think that's a very good idea. And I said, I mean, from the onset, we're not dealing with casting a whole blanket at these ZR people. We're not saying that everybody is guilty of that, because they themselves recognize that, look, we do have some bad apples in our business, but we have to find ways until we can get to the stage of because it should not be that you have to get to the stage of draconian measures. And that's why I think that young people themselves, certainly like the young Dems, it is time to have that dialogue with the PSV sector with a view to hearing from them too, because they too have solutions to this issue. All right, as to how we can get to nip this in the bud. And I think out of those discussions, we can frame and have a policy. But the reality about it is that I think the ZR associations and so on, they know who the bad apples are anyhow. And it would be good, yes, if we use the GPS systems. I think GPS systems should be on all public transport so that their actions can be monitored. And that might be a very immediate solution to the issue, where you know for a fact that you have infracted, and therefore you are now susceptible to the penalty of the criminal law. I think that that's something that I would certainly embrace. In addition to that, I think we have to focus on having codes of conduct which govern how our PSV operators who transport anybody, whether it's school children or otherwise, operate. And in particular, school children. And that's why I feel that the sector should be approached in a meaningful way to have some dialogue. And I think we have gone to the stage now where we have to have them come and say it to us, meaning the young people, because I think the young people can have this dialogue, don't need me to have it for them, and engage with the PSV sector on how can we deal with. We do not have we cannot wait for a catastrophe to happen in order to nip this issue in the bud. I want to say kudos to those ZR drivers who are following the law, because there are many of them who follow the law and who adhere to the regulations. But what we want to do is to get to those who are not following the law and who are creating hazards for our young people.
Thank you. We'll take one more question from the audience for this section.
Good afternoon, Comrade Ashley. Adrian Bascom, St. Michael, South Central. Comrade Ashley, I heard you mention a couple of things, but do you also think that amidst of all the workshops that the government of the day said that they were doing and inviting ZR drivers to come to workshops to be taught how to behave and how to deal with the public and what not to do, do you think that the ultimate problem could be one that they're not really dealing with the owners of some of these ZR vans? Not all are bad. The owners that are allowed to get away for perhaps particular reasons, monetary reasons, but the government does collect some kind of money off of these ZRs. So could it be possible that it is because of that they have chosen this more of a light-headed approach and saying one thing, but they're not really wanting to tackle because of whatever connections they may have with some of the key owners of some of these vans? Because as you rightly said back in our day, and what Comrade Braffett would have said is true, where we used to pay 25 cents to get on the bus, we had particular officers that were put in place that would govern what goes on the all-time transport board buses. And now I believe because of that regulation had been removed and they want to make it a little lighter so people won't feel that tied down, to use the young people term, that they're allowed to get away and run wild, if not all, the majority. Do you think that could be the problem that needs to be dealt with the owners themselves and the monetary gains that this government is actually gaining from this exercise?
Thank you for the question. I think that it has been an issue, a challenge in relation to the owners and making them liable for the actions of their employees when they do break the law. That's going to be an issue that we look at. I believe ultimately the owners of the PSVs have a responsibility for the persons that they hire. How you can get to the owners is to ensure that the regulations relating to the type of people who are hired to manage these vehicles are adhered to. And certainly if they're not adhered to, that's how owners can be held accountable. But the system, we have so many laws in Barbados, and the issue is not necessarily laws. The issue is really the enforcement of the laws, where the laws are not being enforced, and people are often getting a little slap on the wrist for doing something. I think, though,
from our perspective, and certainly from the perspective of where the Young Democrats are, that the time is ripe, in my estimation, for full engagement with the PSP sector. Because at the end of the day, we are dealing with a sector that has certainly brought significant benefits to Barbados. We are not in the business of saying we're writing off people who are doing legitimate activity. The ZR sector, PSP sector, has a very meaningful role to execute in the public transportation system, and I think that has to be recognized at the onset. What we need to do is to find a way to dialogue with them on how we can improve the issues that they're having. And I've heard the president of one of the organizations actually going publicly and saying, "No, we will support the enforcement of the law in relation to recalcitrant drivers." I've heard him say that, which means that in the administration of the organizations, there is that goodwill, and they want to know that persons are prosecuted. I feel we have an opportunity by reaching out to the sector. Certainly, if we are serious about moving forward with governance and in ensuring that we can be relevant in terms of our policy making, to have dialogue with the PSP sector with a view to ensuring that we can agree on the priority measures that are necessary to bring order to those few in the sector who are not orderly, and to take the sector to a new level. I think that will be responsible governance, and I would advocate for that, so that hopefully in the not too distant future, I will hear what has come out of that dialogue with the PSP sector.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lashley. Thank you, Mr. John, and to the audience for your contributions on that section of the panel. And moving on to safety, behavior, and regulation. Mr. Lashley, you spoke on the regulation. You did say that the regulation tends not to be enforced as it should. And Mr. John, you did mention that the ZR culture, the PSP culture, is quite attractive to persons. So my question to you, Mr. John, is how can we ensure safety, discipline, and self-respect for killing creativity and self-expression?
Good question. Before you even answer this question, I don't want to paint all PSV drivers with the same brush. I believe that there are some responsible drivers who really and truly, take their job seriously. They understand the importance of transporting our young people and people in general to unfortunate locations. So before we start, I would also like to say that I believe that there are laws in place. I do believe that there are laws in place, but the enforcement of the laws. And I also do understand too that the reason why there's such a lack of enforcement where law is concerned is also we're looking at the shortage of officers. We've been hearing stories about the shortage of police officers commuting and trying to get people to be on the road and actually monitor what's going on with these drivers and what's not. So this could also be a case that we have to look at as well. How do we enforce these laws? Do we have enough police officers? What do we have to do to get these officers on the road and active? And how we need to recruit if we're looking for more officers as well. So I think that the laws are there. I believe the laws are there. I don't believe that they're not. I remember when I used to catch van, a police would pull over a van, if the music turned off the set, turn it off, certain things you're not allowed to do, the overcrowding and what's not. So yes, we know for sure that the enforcement is the issue and not necessarily in terms of the laws. Accountability in terms of, yes, the owner and the employee, both sharing it equally. I do believe in the methods, and although I can see a way around it in terms of people availing and say, well, I was on my lunch break, or I had to take the vehicle to get service, or I had a private job. I'm finding ways around it. Although it can be helpful as well, I still can see ways that people will try to avoid accountability where that is concerned. So once again, I just think in order for me to really enforce it, we have to look at law enforcement, because law enforcement is what really plays our young people and people in general.
Okay, thank you, Mr. John. I see a question from the audience.
So good afternoon. Afternoon, Dr. So listening to the discussion, particularly with respect to the PSPs, I'm not sure if many persons may know that the PSPs are actually leased. So owners actually charge the drivers and I guess the conductors a daily fee. The last time I heard it was $300 per day that drivers had to bring back into owners, kind of absolving them of all responsibility for whatever misconduct. But what I find is that the hustle culture right now in the country is what's causing, this popularity and this competitiveness amongst drivers, with everyone trying to hustle to get the $300 back into the owner and start to make money for themselves on a daily basis. So it goes from people having a routine 9 to 5 where they're driving for a particular person. And I hear Foreign Minister actually mentioning owners and employees, but really a lot of the drivers now are contractors. So they have the van, but all they have to do is drive the van, take back in the money, and then everything else is theirs. It's the reason why you will at the rate of $300 or more in order to make a dollar and earn a decent living for themselves.
Okay, thank you for your contribution. I'd like to ask a question of our Kenyan and Dominican comrades, because we're speaking in the Barbadian focus right now. I want to see how it impacts us, or how the PSV sector would have been experienced in your cultures.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Vidal from Dominica. I would just like to start off by saying how much of a privilege it is to be here with you all in this panel discussion, which I believe is actually a regional discussion. And it just goes to show how activities that take place in our daily environments really do affect us, particularly the youth, and how we grow. The van culture, well, in Dominica, we have bus services, and we don't call it vans, but I do understand what you all mean when you say the PS.
Yes.
What's the initial?
PSV.
Yes, that.
Public service vehicle.
So the culture in Barbados and Dominica is quite similar. I think many of the things that were mentioned as it relates to the type of things that young people listen to and witness on the buses and how it affects them in Barbados are the same things that happen in Dominica. Like on the buses, there is explicit language as well, not just explicit language from the people themselves, but also from the music that's being played. That has actually been a big issue on our island, the time that's being played, because in Dominica, we have a distinct genre called Buyo. And with Buyo, most of the language right now it's provocative. So there has been a lot of dialogue surrounding that, from talk shows to the newspaper and just ordinary conversations. And what was actually being discussed is how it impacts the young people in particular. Because as an adult, although the language itself can be harmful to society as a whole, when we think of these type of things, we tend to focus particularly on the youth, because the youth are the future generation. And so I believe that when we continue to just tolerate this or be lenient with it, I think it allows the youth to kind of subconsciously have this aggression or derogatory expression. So I say subconsciously because my comrade Yesdiko mentioned that many young people at their homes or at their schools are not exposed to certain things. And when they go on the buses or this private public transportation, they get exposed to them. And so when I say subconsciously, I meant that that becomes ingrained into them, and so they absorb them. And when they absorb them, it reflects on in their behavior in society get older. And we all know that we want individuals to be, you know, have proper representation in society because that keeps the system appropriate. So when we have young people absorbing these type of things and becoming aggressive and just taking on a very pessimistic and negative mindset, that just affects society as a whole. So I think it's something that we have to speak less about because don't get me wrong, there's a lot of dialogue. Dialogue is very important, but I think action is just as important. Getting the youth themselves involved and making them understand how detrimental these types of things can be on the society. And so, yeah, bus culture, it's really to me a original thing. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Senator Vidal. I'm moving on to our comrade from Kenya, Valentine Githe.
Yes. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
You all look so beautiful and handsome. Really happy to see you. About time. I was asking when my chance will come so we can talk about this. I was wondering, Madam President, can I bring Alexander here only because he's very also knowledgeable with in Kenya we call the PSV culture, the PSVs we call them the matatus, and we have a whole culture behind them. And it's the Matwana culture, and I really want us to dig into a little bit of how Kenyan, I know with time, just let us know, and how the Matatu or Matwana culture has been shaped or has been influenced by revolution to where we are as Kenyans. Okay, so I'll start with the origin of the name Matatu. So pretty much started in the 1970s, and bus fare was 30 cents. So in Swahili, tatu, 3 means tattoo. So pretty much that's where it originated from. But before we get into the 1970s, in the 1930s, when the British had colonized Kenya, there was a company known as the Overseas Trade Company, the OTC. And these were buses for the whites. And the bus culture was divided into 3. The whites, the Asians, and the Africans, pretty much. So while the the OTC completely grew, obviously there was the alienation of these subgroups, the Asians and the Africans. So eventually, I think maybe in the 60s, I'm not quite sure, Kenyans after independence were able to form their own line of PSVs, the Kenya Bus Service. And in the beginning, the Kenya Bus Service used to do transportation in affluent African areas. Like if you visited Kenya, we have an area called, I think the Eastlands back then were affluent, and that's where the KBS used to go. And then now we step into the 70s, the 80s, where the Kenyans are feeling, you know, that the PSVs are not good enough, they're not efficient, there is control, and they wanted to break away from that. So they start, instead of using the public transport, which is the KBS, individual drivers start to get their own buses. I'm not sure if they came up with groups to do this, because in my understanding right now we have SACCOs that have these PSVs. And then, yeah, then we come to the 2000s, the 90s, Matatu culture gets really into
becoming more artistic. So in Kenya, our PSVs are crazy. They have they have like graffiti in them. They have big rims. They have artwork. They have inside. They have like flat screens. They're loud. The music, and outside of the matatus, you find people have Jay-Z, Rihanna, Mercy, Martin Luther King, Jomo Kenyatta. It's an expression. But in 2002, with the new government that came in with Mwai Kibaki, because the rate of accidents and lawlessness was a bit high, they decided to get rid of the graffiti and introduce regulations. And our matatus, our PSVs had to be white with a yellow line. And those were the official registered PSVs. And they were really strict. The minister back then, his name was Michuki. And Michuki was really intended to make sure that the rate of road accidents reduces. Fast forward to 2015, 2014, I think when the new Uhuru Kenyatta became president, they decided we are going back to matatu culture. So remember, in Kenya, we don't have a lot of wall space. Like there's countries you go to and people can do graffiti on the walls. We don't have that. So the best means of expression is these matatus. And the best part of it is I remember there were so many street children who knew how to do a lot of artwork. And this was really good for them to create jobs and to express themselves. And I think from there, Kenya has just become, matatu culture has just grown and it's become overly, I don't know, it's insane. You either love it or you hate it. So let me pass this to Alexander just so he can, yeah.
That's basically the history of matatu. Now back to current issues. And I'm so glad what I'm listening to today, especially the challenge that Barbados is facing in terms of the PSV, the things that I've had now, but also the good things. One thing that I think we do better as a nation is we mix creativity, the youth, and regulation. So initially we had the regulation where they removed everything and they insisted on seat belts, a specific number of seats, and the government was running everything. But it came to a point where we had too many artistic young people who didn't have anything or anywhere to go to. And the president said, with the regulations, we want to involve the youth. So you own it and you build circles. So in terms of enforcing the laws and maybe reckless driving, drinking and driving sometimes, and foul language, they decided to start circles. And these circles were run by the same young people. So the punishment from the government is actually, instead of now trying to track each and every PSV that has an issue, somebody is overlapping on the pavement, somebody's threatening, overtaking recklessly, what they do is you enforce the laws yourself. And in case your circle, now you put, like it has a number, every circle has a name and a number. So in case this circle has 2 or 3 issues in a week or in a month, what they do, they just punish the whole circle. So that means if we're in a circle in this bench and I keep on breaking the rules, they are not going to eat because of me. So what do you think they'll do? They'll make sure we enforce the law together as a team, because I influence their income. And that is a method that the government used, and now it's self-regulation. And probably I can just indulge you in a few seconds. You can just take out your phone and just write matatu. I just want to Google and go to images and just see Kenya's PSV transport system is. It's not. Yeah, so you can just Google matatu, M-A-T-U, M-A-T-A-T-U, M-A-T-A-T-U, matatu. So, and you go to images, you see all the graffiti, all the art and everything. So it's a $5 million US business every day. Yeah, and it's a billion business. It's a $1 billion business in Kenya per year. And this is because it's not only a mode of transport, it's also a mode of tourism. And I look at Barbados and I feel like you have the ocean. You can leverage on this in terms of making
sure that you make money out of this, because what we do is just put culture on it. Like we have many buses with Rihanna more than Barbados, and she's Barbadian. I mean, that goes to show that we show all the cultures, and Kenyans who are like in Canada and the US, they invest in these matatus where there's a competition every year. We have the #1 bus. We have an award called Matwana Awards where we have the most awesome bus. It has screens, all things, and all these other things. So people come from the US just to come and ride on these buses. And instead of taking a tours and travel, like these 4-wheel drives that you go and see animals and safari, they use the matatu. So they have a party as they go to their destination. So it's like a 2-for-1. And if the youth right now, especially the young Dems, these are things you can start instead of now, trying to enforce laws that people are not owning. Make sure we own it first as the youth, and then we will enforce it. The government doesn't have to do anything right now. They just need to tell us these are the laws, A, B, and C. Do you understand? Yes, we understand. Now we enforce it ourselves, but we make sure that we ingrain the structure plus the creativity and the culture. And Barbados has a lot of culture. We can paint these buses and make sure that we have the regular. We put our seatbelts on, but we still have good music. We have good music. Like seats are moving. That's a song should be playing in these PSBs every now and then. And as we listen to these songs, we sit down, buckle up, and have all the art. And tourists like me who come here, I wouldn't want to go anywhere with an Uber. I'd rather choose a PSB. And we go up to St. Lucie and maybe visit Mount Gay, Rum, and enjoy the rum as we enjoy the music. And the driver is sober. And
Can I add a little bit on what he said? So also when it comes to one thing that we found really interesting with what's going on with Kenya with the Gen Z uprising is people are using these spaces inside the matatus to have political chants. Like right now we have a chant called one term. So we are saying the Kenyan president is a one-term president, but we say one term. So you're in these matatus and there are songs playing about how he's a one-term. There are people doing civic education in the buses, because they have created that space. So I think what Alex is saying when it comes to revolutions and changing the trajectory of the country is leveraging what you have, leveraging expression because you have it here. And that's how you draw the youth. That's how you expand, the young Democrats.
Okay, thank you so much for your contributions from our regional and international comrades. I have another question for you guys. What insights or what advice could you give us as young persons or as Barbadians and how we could manage to reduce the incidents on the road to PSVs, but also encourage people to use it in a safe way, in a more engaging and a more constructive way?
Before I give my contribution, I'd just like to say I'm still amazed by the yes, that it's really beautiful and it really shows just how amazing creativity is, especially when it's been expressed by young people, not just the Caribbean, but as we can see across the world. Road safety, I believe, doesn't just relate to the buses. I think it also goes beyond, it also goes toward other means of transportation. Because in Dominica, bike safety is something that has a lot of dialogue around it. Throughout the year, we've had an increase in motorcycle accidents. And again, it's road safety, not wearing the helmets, and not just the bikers. The other vehicle owners, whether they have a bus, a van, an SUV, some of them are really reckless on the road. And even though, I'm not going to lie, some of the bikers, they're just as reckless. some of the other vehicle owners, they don't respect the bikers on the road, and that leads to a lot of fatalities. So I think it's really bringing everyone with a vehicle, whether it be private or public, into the discussion, and ensuring that road safety caters to everyone on the road. And when I say everyone on the road, I mean the pedestrians as well. Now, in my country, I see here you all have stop signs, street lights. We don't have that, but we do have signs indicating where to go, when to stop, and that type of thing. But yet, some drivers, they still don't respect that. So road safety, again, isn't just about the vehicle owners, it's also about the pedestrians that are walking alongside the road. And in road safety, I think it's very important that we understand that there are factors that influence people on the road. So that means drugs, alcohol. So I feel like stricter restrictions on that, more police availability on the roads, and not just police officers. I think it's actually a citizen, it's the citizens' involvement just as much. Because even if a police officer may not be on the road to ensure that regulations are being met, it is us as citizens to see that, hey, this person, you're drunk, you can't drive. And not just to strangers, but to our family and friends. Not because someone is our friend or mother, father, sister, brother, we're just going to let them go out there and cause fatalities, which will eventually cause a domino effect. And that domino effect leads to casualties. So I think road safety, not just in Barbados, Kenya, Dominica, but all around the world, truly involves all of us as a society, and ensuring that persons have order on the road just as much as they have order in anywhere else that they are. And again, going back to drugs and alcohol and, just peer pressure, I will add though that there are some people, again, as my comrades have mentioned, who take road safety very importantly, and they do abide by the laws. They do try their best to drive on the roads and ensure that they are not contributing to anything that would be detrimental to the minds of our youth. So I really want to big up those people because they do exist. And I think it's really getting everyone in that type of mindset and mind frame. And as I've mentioned before, it's not just about dialogue, it's really about action and ensuring that everyone, that message reaches everyone so that we can have true road safety that doesn't just last for one generation but continues. And there was another question, sorry. You said road safety and there was another question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, sorry. It was what insights or what advice could you give us? Could you give us on the issue that we face currently in Barbados with PSPs? So I mentioned road safety as well.
Yes, okay. So what the advice I can give, and I feel that advice can also extend to my country and other countries around the world, again, is just for us as a society to be mindful of what we put out into the world and be mindful of the people who are absorbing it, particularly the youth, because some people don't care. They don't care that their music is loud. They don't care that they're driving fast. They want to fit in. They want to feel that thrill. But when you look at it, if you have to look at it deeply, you have to ask yourselves, why are these people looking to that as a form of thrill or as a form of recreation to release whatever stress they have going on? So when you look at it, you have to consider a lot of different factors, whether it be the environment that they're growing up in, the different things that they're exposed to, not just socially, but economically, if they're under a strain, and that's the only thing they feel that they can relate to release that stress, and then that stress is reflected in the way they drive, the way they speak, the way that they just have tolerance for disrespect. So I think that's something we really have to think about and really get down into the root of. And I also want to mention that creativity, again, back to the Kenyan buses, creativity is something we cannot kill in the hearts and minds of our young people across the world. And I feel like creativity, just like anything else, has its good and its bad, because there are some people who use their creative talents for mischief, vandalism, pollution, just writing all over the walls or writing disrespectful things. It doesn't necessarily be political, but there are some people who express themselves in that. So I feel that is some way that they can express it instead of, drinking or just driving recklessly to feel that thrill or fit in with everyone else. You can go ahead and draw something, or if drawing is not your thing, express yourself vocally, express yourself in any means that will ensure that our society stays positive, so that there are less casualties, not just for you expressing, you never know, for a friend, someone you love dearly, because at the end of the day, we are all truly intellects. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Comrade Valentine. What insights could you give us or advice?
Well, I can't say it as better as she did. She pretty much said most of the things that I was thinking. An empty mind, devil's workshop. So if the PSVs are used as a mode of recreation here and to release stress, that means we have to find a way to channel that energy into something positive. Imagine the amount of jobs that can be created for the locals here who can do artistic work, who can put rims on those PSVs, who can do graffiti on those PSVs. That in itself, it's a job, and your people are busy. They're going to be busy, right, doing something. I mean, every country is different, so there should obviously be laws and regulations. In Kenya, being your brother's keeper has helped a little bit with safety, because with these matatus comes recklessness. There are people who are overspeeding, they're standing on the door, they want to feel the wind, they're just doing very reckless things. And what I've noticed, and I've been on social media, is people will be taking videos of the SV, or who would really, really sort of help a little bit. What else? You pretty much spoke my mind, so I think I'm gonna just pass this to the 625 expert on matatus right here, Alex, so he can tell us a little bit more.
The joke is, I have worked in the matatu industry, so I know she's trying to throw some shade towards me. But apart from all the good things that I've talked about on matatus, we also have the dark side. The dark side is, last year we lost 4,748 lives on the roads. But to put it in context, we are 50 million in our country. So that's a small percentage too, yeah? We lost over 2,900 people who are pedestrians last year. And this is just on safety. And somebody just asked a question a few minutes ago about the GPS and traffic. That is one of the things also that some schools are doing. So it's a bit manual, but it works. So what they do is, some matatus go to high schools when they close school, and they pick the students, take them back home if they're in boarding school, or they take them back to the city and where they get other buses. So what the parents do is, they ensure the driver has a smartphone, and they make sure they share a live location. So that live location is shared in a WhatsApp group where everybody follows this bus. So 33 parents are following 33 students through their journey. So in case there's a stop, they call. Like, why are you stopping for like 20 minutes? Why is traffic? Is there, and that is the old school way. But in Barbados, you can also and I like to challenge the young Democrats. You need to front this. You can leverage the Ministry of Transport here and you can come up with a plan or a business plan where you can target Digicel. I have your Flow too. That's the telecommunication company. So it is very simple. You leverage them and ask them for you to get more subscribers or anything, and then the tourists come here, they use your number. Make sure you can tag these buses, and tagging these buses is just putting one GPS. That means they have to invest a smartphone and 24-hour data on buses. And what you can do is you can have an app. Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland, they have an app called Transit. And that is how it started. The Transit, they just put one phone inside the bus, in each and every bus, and it's locked. You cannot steal it or something. And it's always plugged. What happens is you can see this bus, you can track this bus. So every time we can see how fast this bus is going to, because we can see how fast it got from point A to point B. So those are kind of safety issues that we can front, and we can float to our legislators. And we can also use this as a tool to ensure that we are not only seen as young people who want change, but who can bring change and have ideas that can actually change the landscape of our country. And in terms of safety, I mean, despite having that huge number of fatalities last year, the number of buses that were banned for life, like for life, we have a drop from registered vehicles. It's 35%. 35% of vehicles were deregistered. And even if you own it, now you have to sell it. But even if you sell it to me, I'll not use it as a public service vehicle because it is banned by the government. So if you have such strict rules, when people misuse the roads and cause loss of life, the enforcement is almost natural. We start seeing that the consequences are higher. Maybe the consequences are not that deep. It's because we get a slap on the wrist every time. Like, oh, they say, oh, you did an accident. You say sorry to the family and insurance will be paid or something. We need to have more hard punishments, and then we'll see things change as we go on. Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for your contribution. We'll take a question from the audience.
Good afternoon. My name is Jasana. Good afternoon. My name is Jasana. I have a question. Minister Ashley, would you allow the children of Barbados to decorate the buses like the camel?
I don't know why I was asked that question. It's a very interesting question. I've seen the same art in Haiti, where they call the buses I think there's a name for it. They have a name for the buses in Haiti as well. I was telling you what the name, and I forgot. That would be something that I would have to think very, very hard about. I like the expressions of culture. I'm not sure that within the context of ZRs, if that is something that we can look at. But I believe I'm a believer in dialogue. There is nothing wrong with having the expression of culture in a regulated way. We'll have to do it in a regulated way. But I love what I saw in terms of the use of art on the Kenyan ZRs. And I see some art on the present version of ZRs too, although it's not lawful to do it. But I would stress that if this is going to happen, it would have to be regulated, and it must not be a situation where you are throwing the laws out to the window. Just in St. Lucia, I believe both in St. Lucia and Trinidad, the system has become self-regulated, where the ZR people regulate themselves. I would love to get to that stage where the ZR see themselves as self-regulatory. But we have to get to that point. The laws should not be resorted to only as a means of punishment, but as a means of guidance and to create safety. At the apex of this is public safety and the safety of our children. And if we could find out a way to marry creativity but not compromising public safety, are not compromising the safety of our children, then fine. But I would definitely, I've always been a proponent of creativity. After all, I was the Minister of Culture. I can't say no to that. But not at the expense of public safety and the safety of our children. One thing that came out from my Kenyan brother was that this is a challenge. He's thrown out a challenge to the Young Democrats to lead us. And Jenny know that I have actually thrown that out even before this media conference. That the time has come. Don't wait for the elders to do it or the policymakers to do it. This Democratic Labour Party is seats and moving, right? So if you really believe in seats and moving, it's time to take the bull by the horns, ask for a discussion with the PSV sector, and I don't think they will say no, because they would hear me through this medium saying that it is timely. And I think it is timely for there to be youth-led solutions to national problems, especially in circumstances where the government has not come up with any solutions to this sector. It is time now for there to be youth-led solutions to this challenge. And I am very, very supportive of those solutions being crafted and designed through the energies of the Young Democrats, the young people, the future leaders of our country. Some of them are actual leaders in their own right. I would like to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Lashley, for your repeated challenge to the Young Democrats. It's not falling on deaf ears. So we have a question from the audience.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Quincy Jones, candidate for Christchurch Central. I have two questions. One is on ownership of vehicles. Now, we know that in the public vehicles of the Transport Board is owned by government. And you don't see really that reckless behavior with the Transport Board. But you will tend to see that sort of reckless behavior where there's the private sector being involved. But then there's the question, who guards the guard? Some of the private sector vans are only seeing police and those who are doing the regulatory framework. So when one pulls over a van, sometimes it might be the ownership of the same officer or anyone that doing regulatory aspect. So how do we control or balance ownership with law? That's one. Two, in Trinidad and Tobago, they do a pointing system where it was designed for all cars. It started with the transport vehicles that they went straight to all the cars. But I think that the aspect of the pointing system, what is called the reward system, can be included in Barbados transport in terms of the vans, whereas once vans do not go off route, stop with overloading or the whole gyrating or whatever they do, that the incentive is that they will get a cheaper discount on their insurance. And I think if we find ways to not to get rid of something, but to find ways to reward. And I think that if PSVs know that if they, for a whole year, they do anything that is illegal, that they can get a 10% discount on importing a car or importing a vehicle or reducing their road tax or reducing their license or reducing their insurance of the vehicle, can be a new way of being creative by being smart at the same time. So my two questions on ownership and rewarding the system in a very controlled manner.
And once again, I saw Quincy looking at me because he designed that question for me. Ownership, I don't believe that, because persons who own Zadars are themselves, let's say, police officers, and they're above the law. The law is there to be followed by everybody, and nobody's above the law. So whether you're an owner and you are a judge or whoever who you are you are to be within the law. And the law, I think the issue is enforcement of the law. The law is there to be enforced, and I think one of the problems is that the government, in trying to show the country a nice fiscal position, has actually carried out a retrenchment of public sector workers. Some of them used to be the people who were the inspectors, who were responsible for the enforcement of the law. I don't think you can see any inspectors now on the road who will stop us at R and report them and so on. So on the one hand, you've been able to say, well, look, we have been able to remove some of the fiscal expenditure, but at what cost? At the cost of surrendering the very important role of enforcement of the law. So you can't have your cake and eat it. What you're getting is that you're getting a situation where the law is there, but the law is not being watched. I have called before for Barbados. I saw in the paper the other day that the police had actually used the cameras and reported some people, although they have not promulgated the law and advertised it. But I am a proponent and a supporter of having our camera system on the road become operative, but obviously to ensure that the public education goes before it. But if persons know that when they pass a traffic camera, possibly speeding or breaking the law, it's likely that they will get a ticket in the mail to pay a fine. I think that will create a change in the public behavior and use of the road. But we have to get serious about it, and we have to enforce it. And I think in enforcing it, we have to start the business of public education. I don't believe in imposing the law just by waking up and imposing it. I think the government needs to embark on a public education exercise and impose the law after certain deadlines. But certainly, people leave Barbados and go to other countries. They go to the United States, to the UK, and they use the road knowing full well that if they break the law, they will be fined through the mail, and the photograph of the infraction is sent to them. We need to get to that stage. I think if people are finding that they're paying more money when the month comes than they're paying to the supermarkets and so on, they will curb their behavior. Unfortunately, we've gotten to that stage in Barbados, but we do not have to wait for a tragedy, a mass tragedy in terms of injury and death, to do something about what's going on. And yes, we can embrace the culture and the creativity. I have no issue with that. But I believe it must be done not at the expense of public safety and the safety, especially of our children.
I would like to
Another
add
question.
I would like to add
Quincy, before you go, Quincy also made a point which I thought was very useful. Yes, we should incentivize the sector. If, for example, we introduce that to say that, look, if you have a driver who has been driving safe for the whole year, there should be some reward for that. Even as you punish persons who are breaking the law, we should create incentives for those who are following the law. That if the government don't plan to do it, this ought to be the LP's policy. Now we are not selfish with policies. We are not selfish with ideas, but I think that's a very useful idea that has been put on the table.
Yes, and to Quincy's question, I would like to add to that as well. You was talking about, Dr. Armstrong touched on it, when you compare the minibus versus the transport poor bus, the hustle culture, and the mindset, what would make a driver decide to do the things that he does, rather overload, speed and what's not. The incentive basically is money. Driving a transport poor bus, you get a salary, and that's it. It's a flat salary. So at the end of the day, if you get 2-3 people in your bus, who cares, And as a minibus or a PSV driver, your thing is to get as much money as possible. Also, too, we must also acknowledge that there is a penalty as well. You can go to the traffic court and say it's overloaded with minibus drivers who probably breach the law. So yes, when it comes to them feeling it in their pockets, they do feel it. But it comes back again to risk versus reward. When it comes to the idea that I need to get this money, I have bills to pay, I have to do this and I have to do that, you introduce that competitive nature, you can see people risking it again for the biscuit. So I guess we have to look at, and we was talking earlier too, and we was talking about trying not to get the children to ride on the minivans. The reality of it is that I am against the idea because one, I can see how it would implicate those who have already struggling and hustling, especially on certain routes where the commuters are not that frequent. So they heavily rely on these young people to catch the van, so they can make a decent salary and what's not. So looking at it from their point of view, I can understand why they would do not the reckless acting, but the having the hustle mindset. Hey, I go, boy, gotta get back down there. You know, like everybody load up, see some moving. You know, that kind of hustle mentality. And yes, they are hit once they're caught. There will be traffic court will deal with it. They have to pay a fine. But it comes back down to when you're desperate. It comes back down to when you tell yourself, what am I going to do to at least either finding creative ways to make more money. And the reality of it is that the dark or the, as I would say, the dark side is very attractive. And people tend to be very attracted to the dark side. So doing certain things that you know you're not supposed to do is gonna attract a particular crowd. Is gonna and the majority of times it is very heavy. The crowd is very massive. So for the comparison between the two, of course, the man that driving the transport board bus, he does not care. There's no need for him to hustle. There's no need for him to try and load at the bus beyond what he's supposed to do. And then for the ZR drivers, I understand why they target the young people. Because when we look at it, we start looking at percentages of what's not. There's not, most school children do not drive, or most school children do not get taken to school by car. Most of them use vans or transport. So for them, that is their goal line. For them, that is what it is to bring money, you know. So I guess we have to look at it and find a way so it does not seem or deem so competitive. Either it's oversaturated, the balance between routes, looking at those kind of views as well to help these PSP drivers as well, where they don't have to try to, you know, grab at every single thing, but do it in a more respectable and well-being. So yeah.
So actually, when you were speaking, the both of you, I just thought about something in terms of security. You know, ensuring that young people, especially school kids, are being protected. And I don't know, does Barbados have like a centralized system where, let's say, you can call the number because there's like a track, or you can call the number because you saw someone mugging someone, or you can call the like a yeah, but not for. So you know how you have like the one that you call the police, that's like a emergency number. But do you have another one where they like do like it's a connected system that connects all the like yeah, do you have that connects like all the ministries? Let's say I needed like health, transport, whatever, you just call that up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But what your team can do, the Young Democrats, maybe you can start by having community engagement, and this community engagement will involve public schools, you know, the teachers, the students, the public circles, the parents, the tech, obviously your transport, Ministry of Transport, and the police system. And you can come up with like, I know Alexander mentioned GPS, a little bit closer to that, but this would be a system where maybe if there's school kids in a PSV, right? And this is just me thinking out loud. And they notice something, maybe the speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour. And they, especially let's say in the event that these cultures are intertwined and you have all these things, and they notice that this is something they can just go into an app or something and just report that. And then since not every place has a camera and the number plate has been input there, the owner of the vehicle, or I don't know how, the police, I mean the driver, automatically get fined with that because they know someone's watching. Do you feel like that would be something that would, in your mind, do you feel like it would make a difference or no?
I think it can be considered. I believe that all ideas can contend. Of course, it will have to be framed. If for example, that system were to be implemented, would it have to be somehow incorporated within the road traffic regulations, so that, for example, if someone is in jeopardy of getting a fine because of an anonymous reporting, that raises the question of evidence that would actually concretize, a conviction or a fine. It can be easily be challenged, if you understand. But I think what it can do is to create almost like a shaming environment, where if you continue to get these notifications, it is flagged and can create the impetus for investigation. If, for example, every week there is a particular driver that is getting flagged through this particular system, then somebody is going to be paying some attention, and then you come under closer scrutiny. From that perspective, I think that would be very useful.
I'd like to say something. Earlier, you were speaking, when we were speaking about road safety, you commented on rewards, rewarding the drivers who do follow protocol and who do ensure that everything is being regulated. I just want to add that I'm in full agreement to that. I believe that positive reinforcements are important in anything, because just as we stick to discourage individuals from partaking in various things, it's also very prominent that we encourage them to partake, in the things opposite to that. So yeah, that's just me emphasizing on how I think it's really significant that we just continue to encourage and uplift those who are truly making a positive mark on society in one way or the other. So that was.
Okay, thank you for that, panelists. I have a question from the audience here.
Hi, good evening. I have 3 questions for Mr. Actually. My name is Messiah. So my first question is, do you drive or do you catch bus? So my question is, when you're driving from, you have to wait for something to come in. Exactly. On a Monday, I have to wake up at actually 5:30 to get up. Do I have to catch the van? Because if you don't get up around 7 or 6 o'clock to catch the 6 or 7 o'clock van or bus, you will not be getting nowhere. So I have to get up and catch the van, which is earlier than the bus, transport bus. I'm not saying that the van culture is right. It's not. It's so I can understand what everybody is saying, but at the same time, you can understand. You ever ask somebody who does catch a van or the bus, or the you? But how you saying it, I was sure you never asked somebody before. So I just have to make sure. My last question is, that incident that happened at Leicester Mall, that day is not really regarding the music, as I can say, because someone actually said that somebody don't want shades and bass. You know, it's like shades and bass. You don't want shades and bass. So he went overdrive, but a bus could be playing music, buses could be playing music, they just don't be doing too much. So it could be the van driver not doing too much, not the actual music on the van. That's what I can see. Thank you.
Now, before you sit down, I want to ask you a question now. Before you sit down, do you agree though? Because I'm not calling for the banning of ZRs. Okay, I'm not a banner. All I'm saying though, do you agree that ZR should be providing that service to you in a safe manner so that you can reach school and return home without injuries?
Yes, I agree, because they have some stations where I do not play any sort of music and drive calmly up the road and they still get home at certain. What I'm trying to say is, if you do not get a bus at a certain time, you cannot get anywhere to go to work, to go to school, anywhere you have to go, you can't get there because the buses just come every 2 hours.
I agree. I understand. Although, for example, I have my vehicle now, there was a time that I was like you, catching the bus, so I understand totally. What we want to do though is to ensure that these ZRs operate, but in a way that does not endanger your safety. So that in the next 20 years, I can see you grow as a beautiful young woman, perhaps, leading the Democrat Labour Party.
I can't see myself there.
But we're on the same page, I assure you. What we want to do though is to ensure that our school children, that there is some meeting the minds. That's what I've called for the Young Democrats to reach out to the ZR fraternity, have meaningful discussions so that if they are desirable of taking you to and from school, they do it safely.
Right.
You agree with me?
Yes, I agree. But one more thing I would like to say is, this is my auntie here, right?
Yeah.
Me and my auntie, this our conversation. As y'all are saying, but some people was against the whole van culture auntie. But when it's still about understand that the van, the people that catch the van or the people that drive the van are the conductors, it's still people that are going to vote for you. But to the other night, he's saying that the people from the block just don't feel like the Democratic Labour Party or any party is going there for them, so when they should move forward. So if you come in and going against them, then you say, oh, I shouldn't want to vote for them. And the people in Ghana, they're listening to other people. So you go, some people just got to take what they're saying. So I don't understand you want the safety of children or any pedestrian in the van. But at the same time, you got to understand those are pedestrians too that can get hurt in your money.
I understand. But when we want the vote, we don't want to encourage unruly behavior. We want responsibility. Okay? And I said but 4 times, we are not calling for the ban of any ZR. So don't go and tell anybody that. See what I just said. Okay? All I'm saying, we want to find a way forward that ensures the ZR. I did say that the ZR are providing a critical service. Because as you correctly said, there's some places that only have access to ZRs. So in doing that service, we want them to do it safely to protect everybody. Okay? Before you go, oh, you have to go. No, maybe you're still in the joint. Hold on.
I think she needs to join 625 movement. But honestly, I have a question for you because you brought up really amazing points about, your safety, the effectiveness of the system. You as a young person, if it was up to you, what do you think you want? Like, what do you want? Like, let's forget about all these people here. What would you say you want in this whole, transport? If it was up to you, your imagination, what would you do? What would you want?
So me, if I was in my money position, all the money that she borrowed from overseas, and the buses she bringing in, certain buses, 15 should get this bus terminal, next place should get this bus terminal, because I could see a lot of buses that children can't come home and I'm coming home after 9 o'clock in the night. That's not good. Somebody could get kidnapped and they really don't know what can happen to them. So, as I say, she borrowed money, but ain't doing the right things with the money. She got him talking like this, man. I think she ain't doing the right thing.
So, Janine, you had that. I think you guys need to make sure you know what she said, because one voice is a representation of so many other young people who haven't spoken their minds. So you're in that position, and the DLP and the Young Democrats, to figure out how you start implementing or how you start petitioning the government to do these kind of things.
Yes, and I just want to commend you. I want to encourage you to keep this up. Not even just want to stop it. Challenge everything. Everything. If you got a question or query, I think young people, especially, I want to encourage young people in general to speak it. If you got a question or query, you believe that something could be improved or something that you believe in, speak up. I don't think we encourage our young people to speak their mind, right? And I realized that happened from our Puritan culture when young people spoke in the home. Shut your mouth in here. So we've been teaching our children, oh, this is back chat. When really and truly, encourage them to speak and articulate this up in a respectful manner. Yes, sometimes their views may not necessarily line up, but to listen. And I want to encourage you to continue with that same mindset and challenge every single thing. But by challenging, that's how you learn. And I love it. Just want to commend you. Keep up the good work. All right.
Yeah, I also before you go, I also want to commend you as well. You were speaking, I actually got goosebumps. Yes, I was just so amazed the way that you articulated yourself, and you came there with a kind of courage. So it was yeah, she had the energy. So I just want to encourage you again to keep it up. As he mentioned, question everything. Don't let anyone bring you down. Don't let anyone make you afraid to say what's on your mind. Always think for yourself and always stand for what you believe in. I really believe that you are an example for any young person, maybe in Barbados or Dominica or anywhere else, will be seeing you or even hearing about you because you don't know. As in my speech last night at the rally, I mentioned that many times we think that we have to make an impact in a big way, but here you are at this forum making such an impact, as small as it may seem to anyone else. It's huge. So continue with that spirit, and I see a very bright future ahead of you.
Can you give us your name before you go? What's your name again? Azaria. Thank you, Azaria, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you, Azaria, for your whole contribution. All right, we have another question from the audience.
I want to ask the Kenyans a question. And someone mentioned self-regulation. I was in Kenya, so I know about the Matatus. Marcy and I, we were there. We were amazed. We were bowled over at the absolute creativity. My question is, in Kenya, does that creativity lend to destructive behavior, ridiculous behavior on the buses? Is it a negative outcome from that creativity, or is it positive? And the second part of the question is, does the government need to have a thick hand in that regulation, or do they self-regulate? In other words, is there a kind of pride? Is there kind of a positive competitive spirit coming out of the creativity? Is there any negativity as a result of that expression of culture? Meaning, lending or leading to people not being destructive in the use of the vehicles, but people want to preserve the beauty of their vehicle, want to make sure it doesn't turn over and damage all that creativity. Is that a positive factor sort of a government in the presence of that running that system?
That's a good question. But before I answer that, I'm so glad that Azariah didn't ask me a question. So the structure. So there's the Ministry of Transport, which we have the National Transport Commission, and then they build SACCOs. So the SACCOs are built by the people. So you choose, for example, if I apply this route from here to Oistins, so we have the Oistins SACCO. What happens is this is not only a PSV or you call it Azar? Zera. So it's not just as Zera SACCO. So these SACCOs are also social, where every Sunday, like this Sunday, many Kenyan SACCOs meet at around 2 p.m. and they come in and have this table banking. We call them chama, where we all contribute. Like if we are 20 people in this circle, we own the vehicles. So apart from it being as a regulation that the government has put, it's also a social thing where now we contribute. For example, if I lose somebody in my family, you are going to come together and contribute money and also attend the funeral. And apart from that, we also have each have one bus, right? So they have these extra buses in their circle where it is owned by the circle. Now this caters for the salaries for the people who man the circle. This caters for the repairs and also the fines that they get from the government when they break the rules. So when we come together and contribute every month, on the 12th month we say we have X amount in the bank. We can own 2 more as a group. So 2 of these vehicles are group vehicles, and then we still have each individual vehicle. So that means more revenue for us. So where does the regulation come in? we kick you out if you misbehave. And in most cases, you're not the driver, you're the owner of the car, but you are responsible for your driver. So anytime there's an incident, anytime there's an issue or an action, what happens is they make you liable for whatever happens, and you can be kicked out. So imagine you've been contributing for 12 months and you're going to get the benefits just because somebody misbehaved, and when money is involved, people are very serious. But I'm going to also add this in terms of the whole thing, yeah? To have these circles, we must make sure that it is owned by the people who are there. Not only the vehicle owners, but also the young people who, for example, in Kenya, some young people clean the bus stops. So they clean the bus stops and they stop there for young children who come very early, like from 6 to 8. And when these buses or these PSVs pick them, they give them something little, like 20 shillings. So 20 shillings is like 50 cents or 25 cents, a 25-cent coin. So if I pick 25 cents coin from every car from 6 to 8 p.m., from 6 to 8 a.m., and then at night too, I get something. So those are the key things that have come up when you have this. Now we are creating employment, but it's informal and it's grassroots, but it's really helping each and everyone in the ecosystem, from the owner of the vehicle, from the government, to the person who decides, I don't have a car and I don't have the licenses, so I'll clean the bus stop and take care of the kids who come to board the buses there. So they just stand there with a reflector and there's something like a stop sign in most estates, yeah.
Okay, thank you for your contribution. It's just come to mind that we have left the Young Democrats president basically hiding from all the questions this afternoon, but I want to pose a question to her so she doesn't go untargeted. Or at least it's ready to ask a question of her too. All right, so my question to you is, sorry, I lost the question. I just had it here. Right, the question is on conductors. We didn't really speak directly on conductors for the afternoon, but the question was, how can we reimagine the role of conductors and drivers as mentors and role models in Barbados?
Good evening, everyone. So in regards to this, I would like to say that the Democratic Labour Party in 2009 would have put some policies in place. Even here, I have that one of them actually was that no PSV driver or conductor would be allowed to apply for the hire in the terminal unless they are attired in uniform in accordance with the notice of the dress code. And that was dated, it was the first implement. Some things were implemented in 2009, and then that was amended on the 1st of March in 2015. So to say this is to say that the Democratic Labour Party didn't just start yesterday, starting to look into policies when it comes to the van culture. You asked how we can implement some more, basically. So I would state that it was first start with, we also can't only blame the drivers. We have to start this conversation, what we're doing today, and invite them out here, and also for the parents to have that conversation at home. I think that the van drivers are often seen in a negative light because of all of the accidents and stuff that happen on a day-to-day basis, which is unfortunate. But I also think that the other day there was also someone who was shot, and you would have found that one of the same PSV drivers would have put that person into the vehicle, cleared the passengers, and would have taken them to the hospital. So I think it starts with that light. I think we can use some things from the assets for what the Kenyans were saying in regards to, like making it everybody be accountable for everyone. Put some, I think that the implementation of the laws, as Kamalashi was saying, because there are laws in place, it's just for us to implement them more and to draw on the ones that we can now create. In regards to like borrowing from the Kenyans, from Dominica, or from any other place in the world, we don't really have to reinvent the wheel, but we can learn from the things that are already there. In regards to what the second vice president of the party, Quincy Jones, was saying in regards to having incentives, I also think that that is a great suggestion. So it's for us to really dive into ourselves, implement what is already there. The van drivers, I went into town before we had this discussion on 2 days this week, and I was talking to them. They were even saying that the alliance, the PSP, the whole company that goes through, the processes is not really what people may seem. So we may see persons talking on TV and stuff like that, but it's more in the matter than in the person. I find out that the drivers, they say that they want to have discussions, but they're saying that they're just talking and they're not being heard. That none of the things that they want to be addressed is not actually happening. As Don Marie was saying about the money, I think that they are having not to own a van, they have to pay on a daily basis. So these men are hustlers. We cannot forget that. Just find out what they want in regards to continuing for finding out what the public needs from the drivers to bring the two together. And then I think that the Democratic Party can continue to create a policy in regards to even the youth manifesto or the wider party policy in regards to how we can move forward and do this.
Thank you, Madam President, for your contribution. We have a question from the audience. Another young.
I want to ask you your question about responsible for the driver. Come back. What if I was a taxi driver? Imagine this. What if I was a taxi driver and you were a passenger? I was trying to get you to your destination. I told you to stop what you were doing so you wouldn't get injured. But you keep on doing it. The next thing you know, I stop. And something happened to you, you are saying happened to you, buddy. What should I do? Because you weren't listening, I should go carry you to the hospital if you did to so.
The honest answer is you should tell me I told you so. But yeah, I mean, there are some situations where no matter how we want to be correct, we need to, listen. I think we just need to listen. I don't have an answer for that. Like, apart from I told you so, because you told me to stop, right? And I didn't listen. I mean, I deserve what I got. But also, we need to take care of other people. And so, because you talking about the music, right? The loud music. So sometimes that's why we have the conductors. Like for us, we communicate using bells. Like because the music is too loud, sometimes in those matatus, there's a bell or next to the driver's head over here, and then when you press it at the door, so he knows that the next stop, that's where you alight. But since you have that too, yeah. So I guess, but if I don't listen, just I told you so. That's the best answer.
Okay, thank you again for your question, for your contribution, sorry. I'd like to open the floor to the audience. I'd like to see if there are any other persons who want to ask questions of the panel before we wrap up.
Good afternoon to everyone. I just wanted to say that while we're looking for solutions to this, young people love technology. And one of the things that I find is missing is the real-time reporting of drivers, their infractions, their fines. This could help the situation because I don't believe that a driver should be in court forever, right? And at the same time, the police officer should be able to see that his driver's license, what he's done, the infractions, he should be able to see this right away. So I think one of the things that's missing here is the technology and real-time reporting to kind of, I don't know if that's a diversion for the driver because, in the diaspora, people drive reckless. This is not anything, just Barbados. But it's like the first time it's a fine. The second time your driver's license is suspended, let's say for a month. The third time, it's like 2 years. Now you may not even get it back. Your insurance is affected. The person who owns the vehicle is affected. All the things to tamper some of this behavior
while driving. So I think that there is a problem with the technology or the lack of technology in real-time reporting for the police to actually stop the van, to stop the driver, unload the bus, just to stop the bus altogether. And you just have, you have to do that. These are the things you have to do. Insurance. Where's the insurance company? Because when their infractions cause my insurance to go up. Many accidents on the road. I'm just a regular driver. I'm not in the van culture. They cause my insurance to go up. So I think those things have to be addressed. And real-time technology is probably one of the ways to help tamper some of these situations.
And just one sentence on that. So I don't know which social media is most used in Barbados, but I know in Kenya we have a Facebook page which was set up by people who are road vigilantes. If in case you overlap, somebody takes a photo and a video of that, because the police are not everywhere. So somebody overlaps, they take a video and then post it on that Facebook page. And some of these drivers have been traced to their homes because of the number plate and what they did. Sometimes somebody can do a hit and run. Maybe they hit a passenger and then they run. You can take a picture and a video. Even if you can upload it like later on the Facebook page and just write, this happened at noon today, maybe at Survey on the beach thing. And because the police were not there, they can get reported and can be followed. So we can have a page where people just post videos and photos of people doing things on the road. And if there's a broken sign, stop sign or something, you can also take a photo and send it. Say, hey, government, look at this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alexander. We have another question from a young member of the audience.
Hello, my name is Aurora.
Okay. That you like reading that are
Read things that
why?
because it picks us every minute.
Do we have any more questions from the audience before we wrap up? We conclude? Right. No more questions. So allow me to share the notes, because when we started this panel discussion, we said that we wanted to come up with solutions. We wanted to come up with a path forward for the country. So based on the contributions of the panel and the audience, the notes are as follows. The first one is that the country needs a clear and implemented youth policy, engaging the experts and shareholders. That was contributed by Mr. Lashley. Secondly, we need enforcement of the regulations. That's something shared by both Seco, Lashley, and we did have some support from our senator from Dominica. Third, we need some more engagement between the youth, creatives, the PSV culture, the PSV operators and the public at large. Reason for that is that we need to go beyond the point of just dialogue. We need to get to action. Fourth, we need deeper Well, there are some deeper societal issues that the PSP culture clearly is a symptom of. So while we are looking to solve that, there may be something deeper that causes persons to be attracted, young people to be attracted to that culture. So that's something that we have to look at. We have to look a little deeper at that. Also, the self-regulation that was raised by our brother Alexander is something that we should look at deeply to have some more engagement and some more skin in the game by the persons who are in the industry. We need to incentivize the good behavior while we punish the bad. That was something raised by Conrad Quincy Jones, and that's something we think that could have a very positive impact on the industry. We also have to manage the influences on the PSV hustle culture, because there are clearly reasons why the PSVs behave as they do. We have to go deeper to find those reasons and to try to curb them. And lastly, what was something of note is that the younger contributors took very practical approaches to the PSV. They spoke about how convenient it was. They spoke about the actual needs that the PSV conductors will have. These are people who need to make money, and it is important and it's impactful that the youth were able to see that. Even at young ages, they're able to see, well, we need the convenience and these people need to make money. So it tells us that when we speak to the youth and when we engage with the youth, we have to speak and engage with them in a practical way as well. We have to share our concerns about their safety and still allow that their ideas and their values on convenience and their care for the PSV operators' livelihoods is managed as well. So again, I want to thank all the panelists. I want to thank the audience who attended and all those who contributed to a very robust and vibrant discussion this afternoon. And I'd like to hand over to the President of the Young Democrats.
No, I don't.
Okay, thanks, Stefan. Before we go, I just want to observe that today is Remembrance Day in Barbados, and we want to honor the brave men and women here for they give their lives for the freedom of peace. They reminds us that strength of a nation lies not only in us, but it is unity and compassion. In these times when peace in our region is more important than ever, let us carry their legacy forward with gratitude, respect, and a shared commitment to building a safer and more peaceful Caribbean for all. We also have a continuation of our music video to share with you this evening. So we'll get to that, and then I do have some other things to say to you before we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure if you saw our first video for the Seats and Moving jingle that we have here as a Young Democrats. Right, so the panelists can go forward to see it. And this is the premiere of part 2. There is a continuation because it is Seats that moving everywhere in Barbados, from the block to the hill. So we just continuing to move to every community. So ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the premiere of our second part of the music video for the Seats and Moving.
Since I'm moving, since I'm moving, since I'm moving, what do you do? Since I'm moving, since I'm moving, we're still there, Danny. We're still there, Danny.
Brother, see how they move, man. Seats are moving. 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 Stop it,
not moving the bus until they behave themselves. What are you something on music? That's relax now. That's 5. Again, call them like. Yeah. You will probably take your hand out of that bus window. Good. Let us go quietly. Let me enjoy myself. Really get part of it, okay? Good. All right. Seats are moving. Yeah.
So I'm seeing that you guys enjoy it. So when you know that part 3 is coming up, be sure to come on board the Seats Are Moving bus. Okay. So before I close though, I want to acknowledge some persons because we come to the close. I wanted to say that this is a historic thing. I don't think that this was ever done internationally, in either parties. So I think that the Young Democrats needs to give themselves a real pat on the back because we are the first in history to do something like this. I also want to thank, Senator Shalika Vidal for accepting the invitation to come to Barbados and for being on board from the beginning. She was never hesitant. There was also supposed to be another senator with her. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it. But we want to thank you so much for joining us. I think that your presentations have been great. We want to thank another overseas guest, Valentine Gate, for joining us. I'm bringing along Alexander Kingdon. What's the last name again? King Young Julie, right? So we want to thank you both for coming all the way from Washington, D.C. We also want to thank Zico Johnny, activist. Although he's not in this political party, he still came on board, not being afraid to join the Democrats in the movement of young people because that's what he's about. So we want to thank Zico for being here. I also want to thank the Step by Step production team, Dave and Marcia. They have been, here recording us. There's a lot of things you can see. We want to thank you. Thanks, Daniel, for also contributing the entire weekend and the weeks prior to even before the weekend, came off. We want to thank the decor team that goes out to, Kathy Beats. We want to thank Jennifer Patmore, Paula Harris. We want to thank Steph Watson was actually part of the decor team, and Kevin Cadogan as well. Although they're young people, I don't think we're getting anybody else in decor. But we had Drew. We also have Dave Tarn as well. They were a part of our team. We want to thank Mari also for decorating as well, and even for Rodney for this coming down, guiding us through the decors from day to day. So we want to thank them. We want to thank those in the hospitality. Yeah, we want to thank those in the hospitality region, which we want to thank Anissa for coming on board with us. She would have been looking out for things for us. If we couldn't find the information, she was the one to go and find it. I want to thank Annette for also doing some research as well. I want to come back to the Jackie Grant as well in the hospitality team, Janine Bailey as well. We want to also thank you. We want to come back also to the Barbadian speakers as well. We want to thank Don Marie Armstrong, Quincy Jones, Shaquan Roy, Belgrade. We want to thank Kevin and Ramon again for being the MCs yesterday at the rally. We want to say a special thank you to all the candidates who would have came through for our tech charge. They even came through yesterday as well, and even today. So all the Democratic Labour Party candidates, we thank you for coming out. We also want to thank there's so many other persons to thank y'all for coming here this evening. I want to also thank Richard Seeley. He has been one of our financial backers here for making this initiative come off. We also have Donald Innes as a financial backer as well. We also have Miss Maxine McLean. She also was a part of the initiative. And we also have Paul Gibson. He's been writing with us like he's a young Democrat the whole entire time for the last 6 weeks that we planned this initiative. We have Senator Ryan Walters. He's also been on board with us as well. And I don't think that I am forgetting anyone. I do have one ringing to call who I'm leaving for last for a particular reason, but I wanted to make sure that I got in everyone before him. All right, so, and last but not least, I just want to stand when they call his name because I have been calling him every single day. He don't turn down my calls. He calls me. We have been going through this together from the beginning before I get to him, I want to thank Quincy Jones for also bringing out his trade and charity members, here with us and engaging the young people. But to the last gentleman, I think hope that I'm not forgetting anybody because I know persons forget, upset when you forget to call their names. But if I forgot you, I'm sorry. But I do thank you for being here, part of the initiative with us. But to the gentleman that I'm speaking of, from the time I brought the plan to him, about doing this youth weekend, he never thought that I was crazy. Some other persons thought like, how can you get this done? But he never thought so for one bit. For the last, I could say 6 weeks, it was when we was planning this, he was on board from the beginning, listening to my plans, implementing things where he thought I could improve. And every day we was in conversation, every single day of making this come off. And I want to thank him so much. He is one of the main reasons that this has came off this evening as well. And not this evening, sorry, for the whole entire weekend. And I want him to stand and want everybody to give a round of applause to Mr. Stephen Lashley. He has been implementation of what this weekend is about. We also want to thank the political leader, Mr. Ralph Torn, for also encouraging us being on board. Also one of our financial backers as well. I just want to thank each and every one of you who would have came out the entire weekend from the tech charge to yesterday's National Youth Rally and today to the National Youth Forum. It has been an impactful 3 days. I hope that everybody leaves here with something that they would have learned and they're ready to come back for a part 2 and that we're going to make it bigger and better the next time. We want to thank you for the performers who would have came through, to Team on Howard, to Young Ruler Songs, to being with our DJs, to Shamari and Master as well for being a DJ. So we just want to thank each and every one who came out, because without the audiences, our evenings would not have been as they should be. So we want to thank you for taking the time to come out to each of our initiatives, and we hope that you can continue to fight with us as we continue to grow inside of the party, inside of the country as a whole as young people. And we look forward to you keeping on board and in seats and moving. Have a wonderful evening and thank you for being here with us.
And let's hear it for Janine herself. It's been phenomenal. And for all the young Dems, we really want to stand to all the efforts. They've been really, really, really great. power strength. Janine, you've been great. Thank you.
I guess that you guys, we're just gonna play us some music for about 30 minutes. You can start to just make some mingle and then we'll end the evening. Oh, and before we go, I just want to say, I don't know if you can hear me, but a special thanks to Savion Bay for hosting us for all 3 days. They have been so great. I just want to thank everybody for being here with us.
Yes, indeed. So we're gonna wrap the call shortly, get things activated in here. All right. 2, 1, 2. Yeah, that's me there. Carry on. Yeah, that's it. Not heavy. Yeah, we can play some big tune. Singing? I can sing too, I can sing too, No, I don't have to. I can sing. Whoa. Nah, I think he's a good singer, man. I think he got some good focus in that there. But what happened on Sunday? Now we're going to eat most of the food. With 6 and moving, we're going to do it. Let me do this, man. You got to go. I tell you, future break. What the LP, man? To Geneva shirt. Also, Mr. Ralph Torn. And of course, Mr. Dale Rowe. Consistency, man. The Quincy Jones. Tico. Step moving. Also, there's a people actually. Everybody got the visitor to come Africa, right? And also Dominica. Six and movies we working with. Remember the vote, the DLP. We got to Jamal, Sandy Ferd as well. We outside. The singing boy feel there. Yeah, we have talk. We put the balcony. Let me go squeeze some tunes. Man. After music. That's right.